Evening all, welcome to Kicking Dust. Right, this match, this just is a great example of one of those matches that just gets out of hand. Neither team wants to lose here, and for good reason, because we had a group of Nex. Oh, I always get your name wrong. Nex Ayum Itum Butum Bom Bim Bum. Really good guys, lovely players, fantastic and fun guys to fight against. And they actually managed to sneak in 2 gangs, because I think they had about 8 or 9, maybe 10 people in. No less, maybe 8, I'd say. And it was a really good match, because it was just really good to have one of these matches where it really does turn into something quite serious, let's say. And what we did is we kind of countered it by having our usual tank gang to begin with. But as you can see already, it's gone completely crazy. We've already killed, what, 2 tanks? Third just went down. I think we've lost a tank on our side as well. And it was just, glorious. It really was. I think it goes to show that this game really is a wonderfully, I guess, 3-dimensional game now. I was thinking really just recently back to my videos. When was that? Maybe about 6 months ago, probably less, where I think we were talking about the 3 dimensions of warfare, and the issue really is that there was very much a 1-dimensional game. Pretty much out of the 32 people in the match would bring infantry, and probably maybe 1 or maybe 2 would risk a tank, but it was pretty rare, because obviously tanks were like 1.2, 1.5 million ISK, so losing 1 is a pretty big dent. So that became the main reason why I think there was this kind of very 1-dimensional thing. I know that people are kind of sad that tanks have got such a kind of prowess on the battlefield at the moment. I think this is not necessarily a mechanics issue. I think this is perhaps a map issue. Let me explain what I mean, because this map is a prime example of where there are 2 battles going on. In the building is a big infantry battle that cannot be influenced by the tanks, really. On the ground and in the land is then a battle between the tanks, because again the tanks can't really be interfered with by the infantry. So there's 2 dimensions straight away, and then in the 3rd dimension you have the dropships fighting each other above us as well. So this map is probably a great example of where the thing kind of works. Where it doesn't work is other maps like Skim Junction, Ashland, a few others, but those are 2 culprits, I think, in my mind, particularly Manus Peak. And I would say what CCP need to do is, perhaps, just a suggestion, come up with some sockets that are infantry only. I know there are lots, so don't troll me yet. But I mean a lot more. I think put in sockets that I think really do, having a tank would just be completely pointless. And it could also, almost kind of be an advantageous point to have infantry there, because maybe it could then have turrets, it could have, stuff that the tanks would be of fear from, like in real life. Having something that just means that the tanks would have a hard time dealing with, X, Y, and Z. It could be elevated, so you could drop remote explosives down. It could be, it could be anything. It could be underground. Now, again, I know a lot of maps are like this, but it's all kind of just to make it a bit different. I would make proper little buildings where the tanks can just have no influence at all. That's probably a way, number 1, to deal with the tanks, maybe. I think the second one is to obviously restrict the map somewhat in terms of long-range railgun sniping. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, as a tactic, it's a bit shady, but it's in the game, it's there. But I think what the issue is it's kind of ruining games. It's like one of those things that I think just people would say there's nothing really against the rules, there's nothing really against the spirit of the game by using a redline railgun tank. But you get a bit of a boring match when that happens. And I think this match is a prime example of where I think there was actually a couple of redline railgun tanks, but they're pretty crap, and they weren't able to actually do much. So our tanks could move with pretty much confidence that we wouldn't be completely blown to pieces. But I think maybe that's just something that needs to be in. So having that kind of very definite barrier between the 2, because at the moment there are certain maps where you can just run continual tanks and you will win. And I think nothing necessarily wrong with any of this, but it's just making more of the games kind of much more kind of the battles, if you like, very separate is kind of a way to really push this game. slightly forward. Anyway, so post in the comments, tell me what you think. I just think at the moment it would be nice to have things like this where the tanks can fight, and maybe the outcome benefits somehow the wider match. But I think it should be independent of. And I think Ambush is a great example here where tanks are just ruining that game mode. But then again, that game mode was awful anyway. It was absolutely awful because it was all two small maps, people rushing the points, knowing where everybody spawns. And it was just terrible. Literally, it was. I would rather, lick a live scorpion than have to run Ambush, given the choice. But there we go. I think there's just lots of things at the moment. They're kind of just little niggling problems. I think people are kind of just clocking onto. I think nowadays, and I think certainly things like tanks are obviously part of that. Ambush is part of that. The strafing going on is kind of part of that. But what can you do? I think CCP have got their hands full. I'm curious to see the direction of the game that they plan to take over the next year really, because we've been playing this game officially for a year now. I've been playing it a lot longer than that, I might add, because of obviously the closed beta. But I guess open beta is technically a year old now. And I think it's interesting to kind of see certainly where we've come from and where we are today. And I think what I'm curious to see now is where that goes moving forward. There's going to be a few interesting kind of road bumps on that path. I think, there's going to have to be some form of acknowledgement that the game is becoming extremely elitist and therefore very isolated from new players, just because every day we accrue skill points and we get further away from new starters. So like Eve has got this kind of issue as well, where quite frankly nobody is going to have a very easy time joining these games at all. I know that Dust has got a problem with population again. Population is always going to seem to be an issue. I think, a consistent kind of 4.5 or so thousand people, implying that there could be sort of around 75k, active people in the game, I would say is maybe about right. I think some are more active than others, of course. So I think that's a fair number, and I think the issue really being, and let me just explain that, you have a consistent online presence of any one moment in the day of around 3,000 to 4,000 people. So your average online at any one point is about 4.5, around that 4,500. So to maintain those kind of numbers, you're going to need, statistically, you're going to have around 70,000 people throughout the day in different time zones, different globes logging on. Okay, so I hope everyone's clear on that, because so many people just think that 4,000 people only play this game, which would be completely stupid. A lot are less invested than the elites, and I think the elites, as we all call them, I think they have quite a lot to kind of answer for now in terms of where this game goes, because a lot of people will just go with whatever tactic works and whatever gives them kind of their gaming hard on, let's say, and they'll just go with whatever makes them smile, which in some cases is going to be to literally alienate and kind of, try and be the Goonie Goons of this game, and quite frankly probably fail, because I just don't think the culture kind of works here. I think there is always going to be this issue of, I think, people looking to try and destroy the game as well, which is going to be quite sad. And I think there's always going to be this kind of very kind of hardcore group of people who, quite frankly, are just going to alienate the whole community of new players. And that's why you need some distraction to kind of, jingle the keys in front of them and say, there you go, you go and do that. And they'll go off and chase that while you get, new players in. And over time, they'll filter into the main game, I guess. Tricky though, I think you'll agree, and I think quite frankly, unless this game gets new players very, very soon and a kind of gradual step change moving forward, I think the business model just becomes more and more kind of questionable around it. Are they gonna sell Amigas again? Are they gonna do this, with implants? Are they gonna make more money here or there? It's fascinating to me, because I think, quite frankly, this could be a turning point in the whole game. Around the year mark, it's proven that it's a stable, viable business. And the move forward from this point is now to grow it. So you've established, you now grow, and then in 5, 10 years, 15 years, you harvest and you get your profit, your revenues back. But there we go. I think it's a tricky one, and I'm really kind of curious to see where the hell this game goes. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.